Welcome to the Bible Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Virginia from the Bible Podcast. This is episode 167, and I'm here with you on this awesome Tuesday to bring my solo episode for the week. And I am in Galatians 4. This is going to be verses 1 through 12. And I wanted to read that particular set of verses because this week we've been talking about the freedom that Christ brings and that we're not going to get tangled up in the law. And so I really wanted to kind of dive into that a little bit more and share my thoughts with you about it. And then get in the comments and let me know what you guys think about it when you guys read 4, 1 through 12. So it says at the top of the chapter, think of it this way. If a father dies and leaves an inheritance for his young children, those children are not much better off than slaves until they grow up, even though they actually own everything their father had. They have to obey their guardians until they reach whatever age their father set. And that's the way it is with us before Christ came. We were like children. We were slaves to the basic spiritual principles of this world. But when the right time came, God sent his son, born of a woman, subject to the law. God sent him to buy freedom for us who were slaves to the law so that he could adopt us as his very own children. And because we are his children, God has sent the spirit of his son into our hearts, prompting us to call out, Abba, Father. Now you are no longer a slave, but God's own child. And since you are his child, God made you his heir. And then it goes on to say in verse 8, Paul's concern for the Galatians. Before you Gentiles knew God, you were slaves to so-called gods that do not even exist. So now that you know God, or should I say now that God knows you, why don't you want to go back again and become slaves once more to the weak and useless spiritual principles of this world? You are trying to earn favor with God by observing certain days or months or seasons or years. I fear for you perhaps all my hard work was for nothing. To your brothers and sisters, I plead with you to live lives as I do in freedom from these things, for I have become like you Gentiles, free from those laws. And I really love his perspective on this because, you know, he kind of sets up this story of like, hey, if you have this awesome dad, but, you know, he doesn't leave you anything, then you're no better off than a slave. And, you know, if you have this, and he kind of sets up these different scenarios, but then ultimately says, you know, I'm so happy that I can be like you Gentiles because I can be fully free from the law. And a part of that he's talking about is because in the Jewish culture, they were so entrapped by the Jewish laws that when they found that freedom in Christ, they actually didn't know that they could either have that freedom or they didn't feel comfortable with that freedom and dropping some of those religious things. And so when the Jews would save Gentiles, they would like kind of conform them to like, well, now that you accepted this Messiah, then you need to, follow all these Jewish customs. And he's like, no, like that's not how it works. You're free from all that. You're free from the law. And so does that mean that we can do whatever we want? Absolutely not. We are still children of God, and he holds us to an incredibly high standard. And that's why there's so much kind of backlash with a lot of things in the world is because, Christians are clashing against the world and the world's clashing against Christians because there is a standard that Jesus sets for us that is incredibly impossible to reach without him. And so that's what we're trying to do every day is like be there with Jesus walking along with us. And so I want to encourage you with that, like just let the Lord lead you in your day-to-day and let the Lord lead you through your processes with him because we can't do any of it without him anyway. And when we do it with him, not only will there be excitement and joy and so much growth and adventure in your life, which I know might sound silly to some of you guys, like being a Christian seems boring. Listen, if you do everything by the Spirit of God, it is not boring. It pushes your boundaries. It makes you uncomfortable. It takes you to places you never thought you would go, not only physically, but also mentally, emotionally, promotions at work, like anything, promotions in your life. Like you will go places that you didn't even dream of. You'll get things you didn't even know you wanted. And so I just wanted to encourage you with that, but like that comes with following him and being obedient in that way. So Christ brings freedom. And so I hope that that blesses you today. And I hope that you take some time to go to Galatians 4 and read it yourself. Much love from the Bible Podcast, you guys. This has been Virginia on this great Solo Tuesday. I'll catch you on Friday with Paris back here in the studio. Bye, guys.
Thank you for joining me today. I'm so glad to have you in our audience, and I hope you come over to our Instagram and join our community there at _the Bible Podcast. Our podcast is a ministry production of The Sevenfold. If you'd like to know more about us and what we do, please visit our site at thesevenfold.com. Thanks again for joining me today, and until next time, much love from the Bible Podcast.